Joseph Varghese here, rulesforsuccess.com, our podcast supporting, empowering, inspiring entrepreneurs to scale better and faster, rulesforsuccess.com. I'm here with a good buddy of mine who I've known for close to 20 years, maybe 15 years now. His name is Adam Gilad. Adam and I go back to different circles around marketing, sales, growth, men's work, just a bunch of cool things over the years. I've had the opportunity of speaking on the stage. I've seen him on stages. He's done some unique things over the years. Adam Gilad is a writer, narrative strategist, and Emmy-nominated producer who helps founders, CEOs, and thought leaders uncover the deeper story behind their work. He's written and produced more than 20 film and television projects for major studios and networks, taught writing and critical thought at Stanford, and now works with leaders on books, keynotes, investor decks, brand messaging, and authority-building narratives. He's also been a part owner of National Lampoon Radio and on-air host going back a couple of decades. He's had a lot of fun in his life. He's had a tremendous amount of fun in his life. His work sits at the intersection of Hollywood storytelling, founder strategy, creativity, and human truth. And one more thing we have in common is we're dads. Right? He's a dad of 4 children, and I had a chance to meet two of the young men. His first 2 kids several years ago here in New York City.
Round one.
Now it's round 2, and it's exciting. Adam, it's a privilege to having your brother on the podcast. You're one of the most witty people I've ever met.
You got to get out more.
By
the way, my oldest son and my youngest son have the same birthday, just 31 years apart.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah. So I guess that means that there's
one day a year that we get it on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're working on 2.
Amazing. Well, it's been quite a journey for you. You're a master of reinvention. You've done some unique things. You're creative. I'm envious at times because I studied engineering in school, and later in life I had to kind of build that creative arm of just thinking out of the box and just bringing newness to things. And just I'm in awe by how you continually show up and how you're able to kind of invent. And you help organizations invent too, as far as putting together narratives, which is so vital for companies to put together the right narrative, tell the right story around with their messaging. As I understand it, that as you've done that, it's often, in many cases, it's led to a quite an improvement in terms of sales, cash flow, all of that, by simply making those minor tweaks, adjustments to their journey, right?
Yeah, we call it first of all, hi everybody. Yeah, we call it the gravity effect, and we can talk about where this all comes from. Yeah. But what's true, what we discovered, and all the statistics and research shows it, that if you're a CEO or a leader, public figure of any kind, authority, presence, a face and a force out there in the public realm has gravitational pull. The more you have, the more compounds. Capital, you attract capital, which is how I came to this, by working with capital raises. You attract capital, you attract better talent, attract better customers, more loyal customers, and better press. And there's a palpable, measurable impact on your business if you take your public narrative really seriously. And what we do in my company, the Epicenter Group, is we make you the epicenter. So we create an authority suite so that it's all serving each other, and people really know who you are, but not just like who you are as the driver of a company, but who you actually are as a human being, because people actually care about that again. In an age of transparency.
Yes.
And people want to know who you are. There's Richard Branson makes a difference. When you go to a Virgin company, you know what you're getting. When people invested in Elon Musk last week, they invested in Elon Musk. They certainly didn't invest in the actual cap table of SpaceX, right?
Yes.
Every responsible economic analysis said it was ridiculous valuation, but people invest in Elon. Don't bet against Elon. That's what they say. So those are the extremes, but it really works down to the smallest business.
And so what brought you onto this journey of building the Epicenter Media Group, and recognizing the importance that organizations, companies need to tell the story? As somebody who, so we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our network, our community. a lot of our members are actively working on being better business owners and how they show up.
Yeah,
And narrative and storytelling is very vital. Like when we're able to teach in a webinar, teach on stage, branding on our website, being able
sure.
to communicate a narrative that's really connective, emotionally connective, as you mentioned with Elon and like all those other leaders, Richard Branson, is very vital. But what really brought you to this journey of becoming a narrative strategist and expert?
Well, when I was 1 year old, it's been a long circuitous journey,
Yes.
that's for sure. Look, I've always loved writing. Both of my kids, both of my older kids, I have to get used to saying that.
Mm,
Both of my round one kids are musicians,
mm,
and I always said to them, I play a little bit,
mm,
but I always said to them like words have always been my music,
mm,
just from extremely young age. Probably my mom is responsible for that,
mm,
and just I've always loved great writing. It's hard to communicate, but it like physically affects me when I read a great line, when a great line of poetry, a great line of text, a great quote. It just that's how I'm built. So language has always been my thing, and I followed that all my life.
yeah.
Through the PhD work in literature and communication, through Hollywood, lots of
Mm,
Hollywood.
yes.
Um,
Including
and
the X-Men 97, that cartoon series you wrote.
yeah.
Right.
X-Men 97, Gargoyles. Yeah, I was cool once to my kids. Um,
We're
once
still
before.
cool because X-Men's back on now. Apparently,
I
they
know. It's a
brought the
great
series.
show. It's a really good
Yeah.
show. And Gargoyles.
I
Oof.
grew up with comic books. That were, I mean, storytelling comic books. That was my whole thing growing up. Was bullied and lots of thousands of comics in the back of the house. My
Ac
wife's
uh, that's
trying to
great.
get
See,
me
I
rid
grew
of.
up Mad Magazine and National Lampoon. That was where my brain went. But, I'm actually working on, something that just came to me from a VC
Mm,
actually in
mm,
Dubai, a new animated series. So we're talking about that. That's really interesting. But, so I
mm,
got Hollywood was a natural draw for
mm,
me. I've always written stories, um, and then got very interested in business,
mm,
obviously, when I started my own company. And look, in my own company was around dating and relationships and men's
mm,
development, as you know.
mm, mm,
And it really started
mm.
because people don't know how to communicate their soul. They just
True.
don't know how to communicate. And
Yeah.
even though this isn't about the business, it really is related. Um, so I got single for the first time at age 39, and I didn't know how to date, but I can really write. And someone said you could do online dating. I'm like, really? You could like
Mm,
go online and write to people? I don't actually have to leave my house and be short at a bar.
mm,
Um, so I went online and wrote profiles. One was seen by a woman on a ABC show. I ended up going on the show. It's called How to Get the Guy. I was the guy,
awesome.
because my profile was so outstanding, so
Mm,
unlike other profiles. And
mm,
actually, we can talk about marketing and exactly how my
mm,
profiles are different, because it's actually interesting and pertinent to business.
mm.
Because I
Yes.
wrote with the market in mind.
Mm,
So the profile that got me on TV, and I wrote a book for men and one for women on how to
mm,
communicate, how to use language in a way
mm,
the other gender actually absorbs language, because men and
mm.
women generally generally process language differently. We have
Yeah,
different
they do.
brains. We
They
actually
do.
have different constructed brains.
Yeah.
Um, but rather than talk about myself, which everybody does, which is a big mistake in communication in general,
Mm,
um, I call it the the uh, the garage sale
mm,
profile. First, I know, Joseph, you're way out of the singles scene, but the profile would be like something like, I'm a lawyer, I've been to 27 countries, I surf, I've done this, I've
mm.
done that, I have this, blah, 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 blah. It's all about me. Mine was, you are inspired and inspiring, vivacious and witty with a great open-hearted laugh. Joy swims around you. You
Yes.
can't help it. And I was like visioning my customer. I was visioning the person I wanted to meet. So that led to a wild detour in my life, because I became pretty well known
Mm,
through my programs and through networks, and literally had thousands and thousands of students teaching them how to communicate. And then they would say, "Wow, I'm finally getting dates. How do I date a supermodel?" I'm like, "Well, it's not really like that. It's like there's
mm,
like, what should I write?" I'm like,
mm.
"It's not about what you write; it's who you are."
It's who
And
you
that's how
become.
we
Yes.
met, right? So I
Yes,
got
we did.
involved in men's work and personal development stuff for women, because it
Mm,
really was the next step.
mm.
And that got me deeper into communication. That put me in touch with some really interesting entrepreneurs. And in building the business, I began to see how business people also don't know how to communicate.
Yes.
And a couple of years ago, I got
Mm,
involved in what's called equity crowdfunding,
mm,
which you probably know what it is, but it's
mm,
basically laws. came into effect in the 2000 teens that allowed non-accredited investors, normal people, not people without $2 million of personal wealth, for example, to invest in pre-IPO companies through something called Regulation Reg CF, Reg A, Reg D. So there's opportunities now for regular people who are non-accredited to invest in startups. And so those companies that are raising money needed to tell their story, and that became really fun for me. So I got involved in that. And then I started expanding past that, looking at some CEOs, friends of mine, basically, that needed books. They needed keynotes. They needed a language that communicated who they were, because they weren't communicating who they were. And the stats are all out there, man. It's like, I think for the last 5 years, the 10 most visible CEOs in one study showed a 239% increase above other companies' growth advantage. There's a 3x improvement in attracting top talent. If people know who you are, you have 60% faster capital raising. If you have public authority. So like the stats are all there. The proof is in the pudding. We get it intuitively.
When you sit with the CEO, what are you listening to that they usually can't hear themselves?
Well, this may be because I dated so much, but like, I'm really good at interviewing. So one thing I really specialize in, my personality flaw is probably my biggest asset in business, which is I fucking can't get bored. I hate being bored. I cannot settle for surface. I got to know what's behind the behind, so to speak. So I get to the story behind the story. So for our CEO Suite product, we have an Authority Suite production that we do is based on a 5-hour interview process, roughly 5 usually, where I go really deep with the client, like a CEO. Like, what are the deep drivers of who they are? What do they understand that other people in the industry really don't? What matters to him or her beyond financial return? What has the consensus got wrong about leadership around finance, around your particular industry? What are you really serving? Who are you really serving? Why? And I tend to go deep. We call them deepening questions in relationship. I got walls and walls of marriage and relationship books that I spent years reading and teaching. But they're called deepening questions, and I just take them deeper and deeper until I find the beautiful nugget. So can I give you an example? Just to really, this is my favorite one. So I'm working with a CEO of a really innovative tech company out of Israel, and they're doing their Series B, like a 50 million Series B. So he wanted to raise his public persona. He wanted to have more content to show. So I got into his background, and this is a guy who's like passionate about improving the world, particularly through energy, how power is designed and planned, and who pays for it, who suffers for it. And there's a lot of gaps. And I went deeper and deeper with him. He grew up in a relatively poor desert town in Israel, in the Negev, and his mom was a nurse. And the image that I was able to pull out of him, which he's never talked about because just it never came up, was he used to have this little scooter, and he would follow his mother on her rounds in this desert hospital, right? And what he remembers is seeing how deeply in service of others everybody else was. Like all the adults, that's what they did. He said, I never heard of an artist. I never heard of a writer. I never heard of a professor, a theorist, not part of his world. His whole mindset was formed by that beautiful image of this little kid on his little scooter following her around this hospital. So those are the kind of details that, in a speech, in a keynote, everyone will remember. Everyone will have that, what's called a parasocial relationship with him, right? And will be more empathetic and the word is, I'm trying to find the word. They will feel connected to him and wanting to do good for him.
Especially if he's able to step into that role, that boy again, like that moment where the audience can kind of see that child kind of walking around or on the bike around and scooter around, following his mom.
We should get an AI projection hologram. He should come out on stage while he's speaking. Go around him a few.
Augmented reality, that's going to happen. Like I think
this will happen.
There was a scene in one of the Iron Man movies where Tony Stark does that, where he kind of relives his childhood, brings his parents back, and like you see that. It's very like cathartic and very meaningful. And
nice. Thank you for that.
And Marvel's amazing because they tied all that together later on. And then Spider-Man the recent Spider-Man came out with Mysterio, and it all tied back into those moments. And it's brilliant when you're able to connect things together, narratives together in a way that I mean, I used to watch a lot of comedy, like Billy Connolly and like others, and how they would like interweave these stories, narratives in a way that has you like wanting more because it's like you're weaving different experiences and moments together where the listener in the background, I'm sure the work you do kind of aligns with this, just wants more, right?
Yeah.
And you
You're out
touched
nerding me. That's pretty good. You're seriously out nerding me. I like it. Um,
I am a nerd. I've gone through that journey, and it's been a
but
fun journey. And now it's managing kids and uh, helping
yeah,
entrepreneurs scale, and just doing what I do, connecting people together in other ways. I mean, it's been fun. It's been fun. So you talk about founders needing to move from being useful to being necessary. That's a pretty strong distinction. So what changes in a company story when it makes that shift?
well, we actually use the term from invisible to inevitable, right?
Mm, mm.
Um, so what's the question? Like, what happens when they make the change?
Yeah,
Well,
invisible to inevitable or necessary, but yeah, inevitable is
yeah.
even more important than that because, right, it's a must.
Look, you and I know a lot of founders, a lot of
Mm,
CEOs, and you know, most of them are trying to make a difference with something they feel
mm,
is important, right? So usually they get up and talk about the numbers, they talk about the industry, but they don't talk about themselves. They don't talk about what drives them. They don't talk about their leadership
mm,
philosophy. And people don't have, like I said, it's called the parasocial, which has really become almost primary kind of
mm,
relationship that we have these days because our
mm.
social networks are breaking down. But
That's
the
right.
relationships we have through digital media
Mm,
um, are actually really important to who we are. And when your public authority really becomes clear. Like I said, there's really four advantages that palpable, measurable advantages.
mm.
One is you raise capital better. Two
Yes,
is you raise the valuation of your company.
yes.
So we call it the invisible sort of element on your cap table that most people don't think about. They don't think about their personality, authority as an asset to the company, but it
Mm,
really is. So it's like a part of the cap table. So raise capital, raise valuation,
mm,
attract better folks,
mm,
talent, like my son, for example, we talked
mm,
about.
mm,
He was at Hinge, and then he was at Meta, which he really didn't like. He actually did not really like
yeah,
the CEO, and he doesn't really like the philosophy over there.
yeah.
And it was a very unhappy. Um, I was over there, by the way, in their New York headquarters, over by the post
Yes.
office on
Yep,
42nd.
yep.
This huge building, and it was like what's that? Severance,
Mm.
like you're walking through these hallways, there's nobody there. You know, and then you see somebody in a corner doing this. It
Yes.
really felt bad.
Yeah.
Whereas when I went to visit him at Hinge,
Mm,
and he was one of the early employees there,
mm.
um, I remember like everyone's sitting in beanbag chairs with their headphones on, da da da. 3 o'clock, they stop, break out the beer, play games like trivia games,
Oh, wow.
and then they
Yeah.
all went to each other's shows at night.
Yes,
One was a dancer, he's a musician, one's a comedian, one's an improv, and it was like, what a beautiful vibe.
it is.
And it's the reason why the company did
Yeah.
well. Um,
Yes. I think it's important to be part of an environment where there's an energy there. I think people
yeah,
are connected and supportive and all of that. I mean, I years ago went to Zappos in Henderson, Nevada, and like just that level of connectivity. And I've seen startups in New York kind of adopt that same philosophy here too, and a lot of them thrived. The CEOs or the founders were able to exit powerfully, and
yeah.
but came down to building a culture and a community.
Like,
And
Meta's done okay, I guess, but I'll tell you that the talent that they attracted at Hinge, they
mm,
pivoted severely a couple of times from their
mm,
original conception, but
mm,
I think they sold for $2 billion
yeah,
pretty fast
right.
because they attracted great people. There's a
Congrats,
great
congrats to your son to like
yeah,
have that adaptability where he got moved on, and he's like, I don't need to work, but I choose to work because, and I choose to work in the people I want to work with, and it's a good choice to make, especially in this age of disruption, where a lot of people may not have a choice.
right,
You touched on AI a little bit before.
right.
Um, so in this age of AI with endless content, and I know you use AI, I use AI. What separates real human narrative from like polished AI slop? There's a lot of polished AI slop. There is a lot of polished AI everything out there, and it's all over the
Sure.
place, and it's crazy.
Well, it's a great question, and I think it's a moving target. I
Mm,
mean, I can tell in seconds if
mm.
it's AI writing. I can tell AI music by the first bridge.
Yes.
You know, I was listening to Brown Bear with my 4-year-old. Brown Bear, what do you see? You know, you remember those? And
My niece just sang that recently because we saw a bear. We were hiking and we saw that.
yeah.
And she started singing that.
Oh,
She's 21 years old. But she started singing that song in our new SUV. And it's like this giant, massive bear
uh-huh.
crossing in front of us. She started singing that song. We were protected in the car, so it was fine.
Oh, okay, okay. I'm glad. She's pretty brave. So, but for example, so there's several versions, obviously, on YouTube. He likes
Mm,
brown bear, snowy owl, grizzly bear, right? There's a bunch of them. And usually, until recently, they were like cute folk singer people, you know, who did music versions of it.
mm,
Now there was one that was just rocking, and I was
mm.
listening to it. I'm like, oh, that's not a person. It was so good, and it
Yeah.
was AI generated video of the different animals. And it
Mm,
was so mesmerizing, and the music was great, but it was not real, you know?
mm,
It's like
mm.
Sora. Sora?
Yeah.
Sona or Sora? Sora.
I think so.
Um,
Maybe Sona, perhaps Sora would
Sona.
be the yeah,
Sona, that's
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But you could tell, I don't know how I can tell, but it's the uncanny valley, right? Where they quite haven't
Mm,
crossed over into human, but, you know, I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure it's
yeah,
coming. It's
yeah.
learning fast, but, I can still tell.
Mm,
It doesn't mean the music wasn't great, but there was that slight mechanical edge to it.
yeah.
I also find that myself, if I'm reading something on LinkedIn or anywhere, as soon as I can sense, as soon as I see those
Yeah.
trademark
Me
hits,
too. Me too.
I just stop reading.
The
And it's
long
not because I'm
dashes.
being a racist against AI or whatever the term is, AIist. I find myself, I don't feel like it's real. I don't feel like I'm reading something unless I'm just, you know, trying to get data.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm trying to
Mm,
get data, you know, Tim Ferriss had a great article this last week, as he
mm,
tends to do,
mm.
about his book sales. I don't know if you saw this,
I
but
I read part of it, and then I
yeah,
had to like yeah, yeah. But
welcome to
to
2026.
so
I
so
read part of it.
summarize, remind the audience.
Well, it was about like how-to book because I love books. I write books, you know,
Mm,
also. But how-to books, he says, are dead, possibly.
mm,
His book sales are down 56% last year, 60% from that this year.
yeah,
Because if you want to know, hey, what does Tim Ferriss think about, you know, increasing liver function or kidney function or losing weight or whatever, you just AI
mm,
it, right? You don't
yeah.
have to read the whole damn book.
And
Uh,
it'll speak it to you in your language, like, and how you
yeah.
communicate, and, like,
Oh,
if someone's
and I do that.
very auditory yeah, yeah,
Explain
yeah,
it to me like a seventh grader sometimes, like on tech stuff.
yeah.
Explain it to me like a ninth grader. If I okay, seventh, okay, fifth. Now
Yeah.
sing it as Brown Bear, Brown Bear. Uh, but, you know, for how-to stuff, I mean, people just wanna get the car, you know, they just wanna get the root, the seed,
Mm,
and I think that's true.
mm,
Um, but and I do that constantly. You know,
mm,
someone will say, "I just read this great book." The first thing I do, and I'm sure you and a lot of people do,
mm,
"Hey, Claude, please
mm,
give me a summary chapter by chapter of the book and give me key quotes." They don't actually give quotes, but give me the key points.
yeah,
Da-da-da-da-da. Now give me the key review points. You know, now I understand the book. So how-to books, I don't know what's going to happen with that.
mm,
What's going to last is individual voice, right?
yeah,
And people actually know shit.
mm,
Like my favorite podcast, after yours, of course, is Prof G and Pivot. You know, Scott Galloway. I'll listen to
yeah,
anything he says. He's
amazing.
a thinker. He's interesting. He's been in the
Yes,
world, you know,
yes, yeah,
for example. So
yeah. So
that's why I look at AI.
so where should founders use AI in storytelling then? Like, where should they, like, absolutely not outsource their voice?
Oh, look, if people feel right, if
Mm,
people feel you're not authentic, you lose and you're gonna
yeah,
lose. All
yeah,
the good things that you get by doing what we do,
mm,
right? With our authority, we call it authority architecting,
mm,
that because it's in your voice. We, you know, in the interview, we take obviously we find your key phrases, how you locute, you know, you know, how do you think?
yeah,
As soon as you can sense that it's AI, you know, as I said, we lose interest, but we
mm,
also lose respect and we lose that relationship. Right.
yeah,
As soon as we sense that, we lose that parasocial relationship.
yeah,
So that's why what we do is so based in what I do. You know, we have we have 450 Claude skills that we apply to it, but it pulls
yeah,
out your voice. But that's why I do the interviews individually and get their stories, get their voice, get the way they speak. Um, and then anything we do, we obviously we run it through AI, but then we edit it with them to make sure it feels and is authentic to their voice. But we can do authentic voices because we go deep into who they are.
Would you say
Um,
that also relates to every aspect of an organization, their brand, their
yeah,
website, their
yeah,
office, like just
everything.
having the same consistency come across?
Coherent, right,
Mm,
coherent, and we find what's unique about them, and now those
mm,
unique ways of communicating, the way they speak also appears everywhere, so people get like
yes.
this is a person, and we give them, resources that at anytime they wanna say something or they have a topic, it'll generate in their voice, what they do, but it'll be their voice, it won't be AI's voice.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
biggest mistake is putting out AI and thinking that you'll fool people because
Yeah.
you'll not only fool them, but you won't fool them, but you'll actually lose them.
Mhm.
We love authenticity now because it's so
Yeah.
rare. I mean, what are LLMs, right? Which is what
Mm.
when we talk about AI right now, which is not
Yeah.
AI, but it's what everybody's using. LLMs is just, it's just the aggregated slop of what everybody's already done. So
Yeah.
there's not really originality there. As we advance into more general intelligence, then we'll see what happens.
So
You know.
some years ago, I studied, I took a class at school of film and television, and it had to do with, writing sitcoms, right? This is
Yeah.
2004, I took this class. And it talked about the nature of status exchange, talked about having conflict in every scenario. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, so in storytelling,
Great question.
like, conflict creates attention. So
Yes.
in business, a lot of people avoid conflict, and I know, used to have events on boldness and being bold and courageous and such for different audiences. Um, what's the value of how can people learn from naming the enemy, if you know what I mean? Like what's the mistake in avoiding conflict versus actually, like the work you've done before is like being on the edge, right? I know you've also worked with Satyan and data and people of that sort, like being on the edge. How do people apply that into their story, their narrative, and their business?
It's funny. It's a great question. It's funny. I was saying to a friend the other day, sort of shaking my head because I'm doing a sort of history book with a great academic. I was saying, boy, I kind of miss academia. I really
Mm,
love this stuff. I really love research and telling these stories. And I said, but I really chose to live my life on the edge. And he said, well,
mm.
it's a better view from the edge. I'm like, this is a friend of mine who's a great
Yes,
lyricist, great song lyricist.
yes.
Wow, Toby Ganger,
Mm,
Toby
mm,
Ganger, Gang. He's just a great lyricist. Also a child movie star, crazy
mm,
enough, but welcome to
mm.
LA. Yeah, so Life on the Edge. Well, listen, yeah, I start with naming the enemy. I mean,
Mm,
you start with that. I'm not a conflict. I think in my personal life, I'm a conflict avoider, but in story, just the opposite. One
yeah.
of the best books on drama is called, it's by a guy named Lagos Egri, and he was
Mm,
really writing about
mm,
stage drama.
mm,
And the central message of that book is um, conflict is drama. Nothing moves without conflict.
yeah.
Um, One of the most important things you can do as a business person is to name your enemy. Also,
Mm,
in any, and when I say name your enemy, I don't mean like, wow, that Joseph Argisi is horrible. No,
mm,
this way of thinking, like I'll take this power
mm,
guy I work with, Power and Energy, his enemy, and he really means it. And I can't go into all the detail now, but apparently from, microchips to national power grids, power, the source, how power works is an afterthought. Like first they
mm,
design the thing and then say, okay, now how do we get power to talk to each other? Because that's the
mm,
whole thing.
mm,
It's
mm.
such a big mistake. He says you have to start from the beginning. So his enemy is the habit of not baking in power design from the beginning. And it has a real impact on everything. So that's his enemy.
Mm,
Now we have a conflict. Now, as humans, we're engaged. On a
mm,
personal, spiritual level, not always the best thing
yeah,
to have conflict, but in terms of moving anything forward, including a relationship,
yeah,
including a business, you've got to know who your enemy is, right? You've got to know, and then you have to know how to get to the promised land past the enemy. And this takes
yes,
us right back to Joseph Campbell, right?
yes.
The
Hero's
other
journey.
Joseph, yeah,
Yes.
right. Is there's got to be a journey from something's wrong,
Yes,
right? The call to adventure, something's wrong,
yes,
to crossing over into a road of trials, right? And learning and gaining wisdom, and then facing the enemy, the deepest fear, the thing that
yes.
stopped you from growing.
Mm,
It's the dragon. Grabbing killing the dragon or embracing the dragon. Um, Getting the treasure, which is the new learning that you've got from having that conflict and having gained the wisdom, the allies, the weapons, the amulets, all the things that happen in the journey, you've now transformed yourself because you've had that enemy to overcome. In personal growth, it's your deepest fear. In
Yes.
business, it could be one of many things. And then taking that treasure and going back in the classic structure, of course, and I know you know this, is regreening the land, like the end of the Lion King, right? It's a perfect example.
Yes.
But
Yes.
so
Or
when
any
the
great movie, like Disney movie or whatnot, or Marvel movie,
any yeah, it's the
the
best.
hero's
Lion
journey.
King is like the best ending for that
Yes.
example, I think. Or you can even Star Wars, right?
Yes.
Or any of them. The Shire, they get back to the Shire. So there's always like peace, but it's always a new level, right?
Mm,
In the hero's journey and the individual's hero's journey and the business leader's hero's journey,
mm,
when you overcome that conflict, guess what? You're not done, right? Now you probably see on this new edge new enemies. When I say
mm.
enemies, I mean things that are stopping growth, abundance, solving problems. All that's what I mean. But when you
Yes.
name it, people can get galvanized. If you don't name it, people aren't galvanized,
Exactly.
right? Try to raise money without saying what the problem is.
Mm,
Like, what's the problem you're solving? And I remember
mm,
Elon Musk said, I heard him on a podcast a long time, like years ago. And he said, yeah, you make money by solving problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the more money you make,
mm.
right? So the problem is kind of the enemy. And that's
Yes.
what engages us. That's core to you can't have a story without. I mean, there's nothing more boring. I mean, imagine a movie, by the way, about a really happy couple being really happy. Like, I mean, we all want to be that, but it's boring. And this
It
is like
is.
haven't worked out that gap yet. Like why we want to we're always aiming in David Data-esque terms, right? For the end
Yes.
zone. We're always imagining this peaceful place, like the Buddha.
Yeah.
But in fact, as human beings, what moves us, what energizes us and keeps our attention is not that. It's
Yeah.
actually conflict that moves us forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm often wondering. My wife. So my wife still reads romance novels at nighttime before we get. We're both in bed with our Kindles and like reading side by side. And
So
her-
romantic. I know. Yeah. Us too. Podcast. Yeah.
exactly. So I think conflict is vital, and speaking into it is very vital. The hero's journey talked about that too, and
Sure.
it's,
Sure.
it's it's so important to kind of speak into the problem because people hear themselves and they appreciate an organization, an individual who's gone through that journey can speak it out loud and really address what the elephant in the room is, because there is that in Elon's world. It's, this world might not last and Mars might be the solution. He truly strongly believes in that.
Hope
He's
not.
got a vision for that, whether it's fact or reality. He's congruent to that and he's committed to that. And
Yeah.
people admire that congruence. And that's really vital.
They admire the congruence, they admire vision. And again, conflict allows for a vision of something to change.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, and that's core to everything we do, by the way, we really
Mm,
start there. Like,
mm,
what do you hate? What gets you angry? What gets you upset? When I used to do profiles, I would do that as well.
mm,
Like find the passion in people
mm,
because we're
mm.
drawn to that. And again, if you can communicate your passion as a CEO, most CEOs, if they're fundraising and all this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
here's my numbers, here's my stats, here's my cap table, here's my blah, 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 here's my ARR. Very nice. People hear that all day long, but they're not motivated. They're not captivated. You
Mm,
want to captivate and I'll put a plug in for my friend Sally Hogshead, who you've got to
mm.
get on. She's amazing. She has a book
Be
called
awesome.
Fascinate. I don't know if you
Mm.
know who she is, but her book
No,
Fascinate is fantastic. It's everything we say,
love to have her on. Yeah.
yeah, we're aligned with her. She's great. But you have to fascinate people, especially
Yeah.
now with so much noise,
Yes.
right? How do you
Yes. Yes.
grab someone's attention? But what makes you actually buy books still? Like I'm looking here at my books, right? I just bought a bunch of new books. Like what makes me buy a book? It's going to be someone's
Mm,
individual voice, someone's individual level of
mm,
insight. By the
mm.
way, it's my newest one I just got today. It's called Wonderworks: Literary Invention and the Science of Stories. So,
I love it. I love that you're always like deepening like
yeah, you
that.
got
Yeah, you gotta.
yeah,
Yeah.
stasis is death, dude. Right?
Yeah.
Stasis, and people forget the hero's journey ends with regreening the land, but once the land regreens, that's a new
Yeah.
plateau.
Mm,
Something,
mm,
if you're a human being,
mm.
will begin to agitate inside of you
Yeah.
because there's always problems to solve, and at that new plateau, you'll see
Yes.
other problems to solve.
Yes. And
So,
you want people to feel. That's the vital thing. And the worst thing to do in any marketing, like anything, is to have them. I was talking to somebody I'm mentoring recently about this, and like it's important to have people to feel something,
oh yeah,
and that's the reason why people polarize, and different people, different backgrounds, they polarize. They want people to feel something, and it's in feeling something that something gets stirred, and you listen more. And ideally, the thing you're speaking toward is something that's relevant to them. That's important to them. It's very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you don't feel anything. And again, there's a new aspect to this, because my whole life I've talked about this. You got to make people feel, whether you're writing fiction. I remember when I was teaching at Stanford, I remember one of the reasons I was actually voted the best writing teacher there, because I walked in and I said, "Do not bore me. Like, write about what makes you angry, what you care about, what scares you, what turns you on," which I probably can't even say anymore. But whatever it is, don't bore me. Like, make me feel something. The new element, and I'm just thinking this out now, the new element with AI and with, in general, media has become, TV and all this stuff. It's just pablum. Like, it's not good. Like, stuff sucks. I just saw Disclosure Day. It was horrible. My oldest son, we went out to see it, and he's at the end of the movie, he goes, "I want to punch this movie in the face," which is that's exactly what I was thinking, in different words. It's like the dialogue was written by a I mean, it's David Kopp. He's a great writer. The theology is like, college freshman level, boring, stupid. Like, it was so not interesting intellectually, or dramatically, or character wise. There's so much of this stuff, so you don't feel anything, no matter how much music he throws at you. And I love Spielberg, throws the music, throws the lighting. I'll compare that, by the way, to a show called Beef.
I've not seen that.
I highly recommend the season. It's with Jason Isaac. This last season, I didn't see the first 2 seasons, and this is the only series I watched all year, by the way. I just, I have kids and I go to sleep with them, at 9
Me
o'clock.
too.
But but which is one of the best things in life.
Yes.
But I couldn't stop watching Beef. I was like laying at night, like watching it, and one of the reasons why it did get my attention is because the characters are so good, the writing is so good, and it's so rare to have that, and the acting is so good. But you have to make people feel, because there's so much out there that's just like, it's false. It's just, it's not good. It doesn't go deep anymore. So we want to make people feel, because that's a good thing. Thank you so much. I am a very blessed person, my mother-in-law.
Very blessed with 4 kids too. So
what?
You're blessed.
She is an angel, my mother-in-law. By the way, my wife's a whole other amazing story. She is an amazing story, life story. She'd never been on stage, and we wrote, but she acted in really